The night side of the galaxy was quiet, darker than usual. In the deep emptiness between stars, sensors from the Galactic Empire's outer patrol picked up something strange. At first it looked like a small flicker on their radar, too small to worry about. But then it stayed there. It didn't drift like space dust or flicker like radiation. It moved, slowly but surely, cutting across the void. Inside the Imperial Command Center, officers leaned closer to their glowing screens. The Empire's defense systems were the most advanced in known space. Every ship, every probe, every drone was tracked and coded. Nothing unknown ever made it this far. Yet there it was, an unidentified signal moving straight toward Imperial territory. The commander in charge frowned. His mind raced through possibilities. Maybe a rebel probe, maybe a damaged ship drifting off course, but the signal's speed was steady, precise. It wasn't drifting, it was traveling with purpose. He ordered a scan. The results came back in seconds and the control room filled with a heavy silence. The object was massive, over 10 kilometers long. Its outer hull reflected strange patterns not matching any known alien technology. There was no known registration code. And, strangest of all, it didn't respond to Imperial communication signals. The commander asked for visual confirmation. A nearby patrol drone zoomed its cameras in and sent back a feed. On the central holo screen, the image appeared, blurry at first, then clear enough to make everyone in the room freeze. It was a ship. A warship, and it didn't belong to any empire, any federation, or any known species. Its design was sharp and ancient-looking, built for power, not elegance. It was black like burnt metal, with strange glowing lines across its surface, symbols no one recognized. Someone whispered, "What kind of ship is that?" Another replied in a low voice, "It's not in any database. It's not ours." Not anyone's. The commander stepped closer. He could feel his heartbeat rise. Then one technician gasped as the computer finished analyzing the composition of the ship's hull. The readings were impossible. It was made of a metal not found anywhere in the Empire's star charts. A human alloy. For a moment, everyone stared at the word on the screen. Human. That word hadn't been spoken seriously in centuries. Humans were an old story. Primitive beings who had vanished long ago after destroying their own planet. The Empire's historians called them a lost species, incapable of surviving the galactic wars. No one had ever seen a human ship, let alone one this large. The commander felt a chill go down his spine. "Run the data again," he ordered. The system confirmed the same thing. It was of human origin. Panic began to ripple through the room. Officers exchanged nervous looks. Rumors had always existed, whispers that humans were not extinct, that they had fled to the outer darkness and evolved their technology in secret. The Empire dismissed it as myth, but now that myth was sitting right outside their borders. The commander sent an urgent transmission to the central capital. Within minutes, his report reached the Emperor's own council chamber. A meeting was called immediately. Generals, admirals, and scientists gathered around a massive holographic display showing the ship's movement. One general said, "How can a human ship even exist? They were wiped out thousands of years ago." Another replied, "We thought so. But if this is real, they've advanced far beyond what we knew." The Emperor, silent until then, finally spoke. His voice was calm but sharp. "You're telling me that an ancient species, believed extinct, has a warship larger than anything we have, and it's entering our space?" "Yes, Your Majesty," the commander's voice echoed from the transmission. "It's not showing hostile intent yet, but it's coming closer." The Emperor stood and stared at the holographic model. The ship was moving toward one of the Empire's most protected regions, a sector full of weapon stations and planetary shields. Yet none of those defenses seemed to matter. The mysterious vessel moved as if it didn't even notice them. Orders went out across the fleet. Dozens of cruisers were deployed to form a blockade. Thousands of drones were launched to analyze the object's surface. But when they approached, something unexpected happened. All contact with the drones vanished. They simply disappeared. No explosion, no wreckage, nothing. It was like they had been erased from space itself. In the command room, alarms rang out. The sensors couldn't track the drones anymore, and the mysterious ship was now only a few million kilometers away, close enough to see with the naked eye from nearby outposts. It didn't fire any weapons. It didn't broadcast any threats. It just kept moving silently like a ghost. At one border station, a young officer stared out the viewing window. He could see the ship now, a dark silhouette against the starlight. It dwarfed everything around it. Even the Empire's biggest destroyers looked like insects beside it. He whispered to himself, "How can something that big move so quietly?" Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. The ship's glowing lines brightened. Energy readings spiked beyond measurable limits. Every Imperial ship in the area went on full alert. Weapon systems locked on, shields powered up, and defense protocols activated. "Hold fire," the commander ordered. "We don't know what it's capable of." But fear spread like wildfire through the ranks. No one knew what would happen next. Then, without warning, the massive ship stopped moving. It hung in space, completely still. A deep vibration rolled through the Empire's communication channels, not like a signal, but like a pulse. It wasn't a language they recognized, but somehow it carried meaning. Their translators scrambled to decode it, but the message was simple and terrifying when they finally understood it. It said, "Return our territory." The entire room froze. "Our territory?" one officer repeated. "Humans had territory out here?" The commander's face went pale. If this was true, it meant the Empire had built colonies on old human grounds, worlds that once belonged to them, before history erased their existence. The Emperor demanded immediate action. He ordered a full investigation into ancient records, trying to find proof of any human claim. The scientists worked all night digging through archives, and what they found left everyone speechless. Long before the Empire rose, humans had indeed spread across several sectors. They had fought wars, built colonies, and then vanished in a great catastrophe. Those forgotten human worlds had later been taken over by the Empire, renamed and resettled. And now, it seemed, someone or something had come back to reclaim them. The Emperor sent a diplomatic signal to the unknown ship, hoping to open communication. But there was no reply. The ship just stayed there, silent, watching. For 3 long days it didn't move. No one slept during those nights. Every Imperial station stayed on red alert. Rumors spread among the soldiers, stories that the humans had returned as machines, as spirits of war, as avengers from a dead world. Then, on the 4th day, the ship began to move again. Slowly, gracefully, it turned away from the Empire's border. The commanders watched in disbelief as it started heading back into the dark void. Some felt relief. Others felt dread. Because before it vanished into the darkness, the ship transmitted one final message, short, cold, and clear. This was a warning. The signal ended. The ship disappeared from all sensors as if it had never existed, but the fear remained. The Empire's rulers realized something that night, that they were not alone. Somewhere in the endless dark, humanity still existed, and if that ship was only a warning, the real danger was still to come. Inside the control room, the commander sat alone after everyone left. He replayed the images of the ship again and again. He couldn't stop thinking about that single word, human. He wondered if they were out there watching from the shadows, waiting for the right time to return. And for the first time in his career, he felt something he had never felt before, an emotion he couldn't name. Maybe it was respect, maybe fear, or maybe both. As the stars drifted silently outside the window, the commander whispered to himself, "If that was only one ship, how many more are there?" Weeks passed after the mysterious ship vanished into the dark. The Galactic Empire's border system slowly returned to routine, but the silence felt heavier than before. No one truly relaxed. The memory of that massive human warship still haunted every soldier who had seen it. It was like a ghost that had left a shadow behind. In the Imperial capital, the council chambers were filled with tension. The Emperor demanded updates every hour. "Where is it now? Has it been found again?" he would ask, but the answer was always the same. Nothing. The ship had disappeared completely. No signals, no trace, no energy trail. It was as if it had slipped out of existence. But the galaxy wasn't as calm as it looked. Far out beyond the Empire's borders, strange incidents began to appear. Patrol stations reported missing satellites. Cargo ships vanished without a single distress call. Mining colonies lost contact with their central command. At first, the Empire thought it was pirates or technical failures. But then a miner from one of the border worlds escaped in a damaged shuttle and brought back a story no one could ignore. He said he had seen something huge pass over the mining fields. It didn't attack. It didn't communicate. It just hovered above them, silent, like it was watching. When it left, all the machines on the planet stopped working. Every drone, every tool, every light. It was as if the ship had drained the energy out of everything around it. The Imperial scientists called it impossible. But when they checked the area, their sensors showed traces of radiation similar to the unknown ship that had appeared weeks ago. That was enough to alarm the Emperor. He called for an emergency meeting with his highest commanders. Inside the Grand Hall, the holographic map of the galaxy glowed bright blue. Red dots marked the zones where signals had gone missing. Slowly, those red dots began forming a pattern, a curved line stretching across the outer sectors, moving toward the Empire's inner territories. One of the generals leaned forward. "It's not random," he said quietly. "Something is moving in a path." The Emperor stared at the map. "And it's heading straight for us." The tension grew heavier with every passing day. Across the Empire, propaganda channels told citizens that everything was fine, that the strange rumors were exaggerated. But those who worked in the defense fleet knew better. They had seen the recordings, that black metallic shape, those strange glowing lines, the pulse that shook every machine around it. Inside one of the outer defense stations, a young technician sat at his console watching the radar screens. It had been a long and quiet night until he noticed a faint signal appearing at the edge of the map. His first thought was that it was a system glitch. But when he zoomed in, his heart skipped a beat. The signal pattern was the same as before. He called his supervisor, who ran over and stared at the screen. The reading was weak but unmistakable. The human battleship was back. Within minutes, alarms began ringing across the sector. Communication links opened everywhere. The message spread faster than light. Unknown object detected. Same readings as previous incident. The Empire moved fast this time. They sent an entire fleet to intercept it. Hundreds of cruisers, thousands of drones, and even a few experimental ships armed with the newest technology. They weren't going to let the intruder come close again. As the fleet approached the coordinates, the ship came into view. It looked exactly the same, silent, cold, and massive. It didn't move aggressively. It just floated there like it was waiting for them. The commander of the fleet tried to communicate. "Unidentified vessel, this is Imperial Fleet Command. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself," no answer. He repeated the message again, adding a warning. Still silence, then something strange happened. The ship began sending out a signal, but it wasn't sound, it was light. Pulses of light flashed across its hull in a slow rhythm, almost like it was communicating in a code. Imperial translators struggled to decode it, and after a few moments the meaning appeared on the screen. "Do not interfere." The commander hesitated. It was the only message they got. He ordered his ships to hold position, waiting for the Emperor's next instruction. At the capital, the Emperor's advisors argued furiously. Some wanted to attack immediately before the humans could gather strength. Others warned that any attack might provoke something far worse. The Emperor listened in silence, then said, "We will not attack first. Observe, learn. If they want to speak, we must be ready to listen." Back at the fleet, the massive human ship suddenly released a wave of energy. It wasn't an attack, but every Imperial system shut down for exactly 10 seconds. When the lights came back, all the ship's targeting systems were offline. The crews panicked, trying to restart their computers. And then a voice came through the communication channel. It wasn't loud or harsh, but it was calm, deep, and human. "You have taken what was not yours. Return it." The sound echoed through every ship. It wasn't coming from any single source. It came from everywhere, like the space itself was speaking. The commander tried to reply, but the signal cut off. The human ship started to move again, gliding past the Imperial fleet without firing a single shot. The Empire's largest warships followed it cautiously, afraid to engage. Then, in a moment of panic, one of the younger captains fired a warning shot. A bright beam of plasma streaked across the void and hit the human ship's hull. It didn't even leave a scratch. Before anyone could react, a flash of blue light surrounded the attacker's ship, and it simply vanished. No explosion, no debris. Gone. The rest of the fleet froze. No one dared to move or speak. The human ship slowed again and turned slightly as if looking back at them. Then it sent one last transmission, a sequence of old star coordinates. The coordinates matched a system that had been marked as uninhabitable centuries ago. But now it was clear. That was where the humans wanted them to go. When the fleet returned to the capital, the Emperor studied the data. The coordinates led to a small, forgotten solar system near the edge of the galaxy. Ancient records showed that it once had a blue planet, a world destroyed long ago in a nuclear war. That planet's name was Earth. A strange silence filled the chamber. For generations, humans had been nothing more than a myth. But now it seemed they were not just alive, they remembered everything. The Emperor ordered a research team to investigate the ruins of Earth. Weeks later, the exploration ship reached the system. They found what was left of humanity's home: burned cities, shattered satellites, a planet covered in ashes. But there were also new signs: metallic structures under the surface, massive energy readings from deep underground, and symbols carved into the soil that could be seen even from orbit. The symbols formed a message: "We remember." Back in the capital, fear spread through the highest levels of power. The Emperor realized that the human ship's message was not a negotiation. It was a statement. The humans had survived. They had evolved. And they were claiming what they believed still belonged to them. Over the next few months, more strange signals appeared in the Empire's outer regions. No attacks, no battles, just messages. Warnings written in light. Echoes of voices across the stars. Reminders that the past was not forgotten. Citizens began to whisper in the streets. People asked questions the government didn't want to answer. If the humans had built one ship, how many more did they have? Were they preparing for war? Or were they simply reminding the galaxy of something everyone had ignored? That they were the first to look at the stars, and perhaps they were the last to understand them. In the Emperor's private chamber, he stood alone, looking at the holographic image of the Earth system. He whispered to himself, "We thought they were gone, but maybe they were just waiting." Far away in the darkness of space, the human ship drifted in silence, surrounded by stars. Inside its halls, figures moved slowly. Human figures, but different. Their faces were calm. Their eyes glowed faintly like the stars outside. They had become something beyond what they once were. One of them looked at the screen showing the Empire's border and said quietly, "They have forgotten who taught them the sky." Another replied, "Then we will remind them." The ship's engines lit up once more, and the stars stretched into streaks of light as it vanished into hyperspace. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, new ships were awakening, old relics from a forgotten time restored and ready. And though no one in the Empire knew it yet, the return of humanity had only just begun. After the human ship disappeared again, the Galactic Empire fell into a strange kind of silence. It wasn't peace, and it was tension, like the pause before a storm. Every major fleet was placed on high alert. Generals worked sleepless nights studying every report, every trace of energy, every rumor. The Emperor gave a single command to his people: "Prepare for contact." But no one really knew what kind of contact it would be. The people of the Empire, far from the capital, began whispering about the humans. Some said they were ghosts of an extinct race. Others believed they were gods returning to reclaim their world. And some quietly began to admire them. Beings who had survived extinction and returned stronger than ever. Inside the Imperial Research Department, scientists were trying to understand how that ship could exist. They studied the energy pulses it released, the way it erased machines, and how it seemed invisible to sensors. None of it made sense. The lead scientist admitted, "They are using technology beyond anything we can imagine. They didn't just survive, they evolved." The Emperor didn't like that answer. "Find out how," he said, "or we won't survive the next time they appear." Weeks later, something unexpected happened. A faint transmission was detected coming from the same star system where the human ship had first appeared. It wasn't in any known language, but its pattern was similar to human communication. The Empire sent probes to investigate, but one by one they vanished. No explosions, no wreckage, just gone. Then came the message. A calm, human voice again, deep and steady, echoing through every Imperial channel. "Do not fear. We are not here for war, but we will not be ignored." The words repeated 3 times, then faded into silence. The Empire's military debated what to do. Some said to attack immediately to show strength. Others said to respond peacefully. The Emperor remained quiet. He knew the humans could destroy entire fleets without firing a shot. He also knew they didn't come back just to scare them. They came with purpose. So he made a choice that shocked everyone. He ordered a single ship, an unarmed diplomatic vessel, to travel toward the coordinates sent by the humans. If they want to talk, he said, we'll listen. But if they want war, let them show it with their own hands. The ship launched into the deep void. It carried a small crew, diplomats, scientists, and one old commander who had seen the human battleship with his own eyes. For days they traveled through empty space until suddenly their systems picked up a signal, a giant structure ahead. It wasn't a planet, nor a ship. It was something in between, a massive floating ring of metal, glowing with faint blue light large enough to fit 100 cities inside it. It hung in space like a silent monument. As the Empire's ship approached, it stopped automatically. The human's voice returned over the radio. You stand before the archive. The crew didn't know what to say. The commander finally spoke. We come in peace. We wish to understand. There was silence for a long time. Then the deep voice answered. You already knew us once. You chose to forget. The ship was then pulled slowly into the structure. Inside they saw wonders. Massive halls filled with light, strange machines floating silently, and in the distance human figures walking slowly between them. They weren't like the humans from old records. Their bodies were human, but their presence felt different, calm, powerful, ageless. One of them approached. His voice was calm but carried a strange echo, like it came from more than one place. You are children of the stars, but you have forgotten your teachers. The commander looked at him and said quietly, You mean the humans were the first? The man nodded. Before your empire rose, before your species learned to build ships, humanity reached these stars. We fell, but we did not die. We watched from the shadows, waiting to see what you would become. The crew was silent. It was almost impossible to believe. The empire had built its pride on the idea that it was the center of civilization. Yet here stood proof that another race had been here long before, one they thought had destroyed itself. The human being looked at them closely. We see what you've built, but we also see what you've taken. The worlds you call your colonies once carried our names. You erased us from history. The commander felt a weight in his chest. He didn't know what to say. It wasn't his fault. None of them were alive when those worlds were taken. But standing there, he could feel the truth of the accusation. The human's voice softened. We do not want to destroy you, but you must understand what you are repeating. The same hunger that ended our world now grows in yours. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. One of the scientists spoke nervously. Are you saying history will repeat itself? The human looked at him with eyes that seemed to glow faintly. History always repeats unless someone breaks the pattern. Then, without warning, the structure around them changed. The lights dimmed and giant holographic images appeared. Visions of Earth, the old human homeworld. The crew saw the blue oceans, green lands, and then the fire. The wars, the destruction, the end. It was like watching an entire civilization burn in silence. When the images faded, the human spoke again. This was our mistake. We fought for power until nothing was left. Now we watch others do the same. We hoped you would be different. The commander swallowed hard. Then why come back now? Because the galaxy is changing, the human replied. The same forces that destroyed us are awakening again. Empires rising, consuming, fighting for control. If you continue down this path, all of you will vanish, just like we did. There was a long silence. The words felt like a warning, but also like an invitation. The humans weren't threatening the Empire. They were testing it. The commander finally said, What do you want us to do? The human stepped closer. Remember what you are. Remember who came before you. Stop fighting the universe and start protecting it. And with that, the meeting ended. The crew was escorted back to their ship. When they left the structure, the giant ring began to fade, turning transparent until it vanished completely. On their journey back, no one spoke. Each of them was lost in thought. They had gone out expecting to meet enemies, but they had met something much greater. When they returned to the capital, they reported everything to the Emperor. Some of the council members refused to believe it. They're manipulating us, one general said. They want to weaken our spirit. But the commander stood firm. I saw them. They didn't threaten us. They warned us. The Emperor sat in silence for a long time. Then he asked, Do you think they will come again? The commander nodded slowly. Yes, and next time it won't be a warning. In the following months, the Empire changed. The Emperor secretly began forming a peace initiative, reducing expansion, avoiding unnecessary wars, and opening hidden archives to study human history. But not everyone agreed. Many powerful leaders saw the humans as a danger, a power that could not be trusted. Meanwhile, in the deep void, the human fleet continued to grow. More ancient ships awakened, rising from forgotten worlds. Some were huge, the size of moons. They stayed hidden, quietly moving between the stars. One human voice echoed across their network, calm but firm. The time is coming. If they choose peace, we will stand beside them. If they choose war, we will end it before it begins. Back in the Empire, the Emperor looked out over his shining city, the towers glowing in the starlight. He felt both hope and fear. Humanity's return had shaken the galaxy, not because of what they might do, but because of what they reminded everyone of. That night, as the stars glimmered across the sky, he whispered to himself, "They've come to teach us again. I just hope we're ready to learn." Far away, the human ship watched from the darkness, silent and still. Its crew looked down at the Empire's glowing worlds. One of them quietly said, "They are not our enemies. They are our reflection." And somewhere deep inside that ship, old Earth's heartbeat still echoed, soft, steady, and waiting. Time moved slowly after the humans' second appearance. The Empire tried to carry on as if everything was normal, but the truth was clear. Nothing was the same anymore. The Emperor had seen something that changed him forever. The encounter with the humans had shaken his faith in everything he believed about power, control, and history. But not everyone in the Empire shared his vision. Behind the palace walls, whispers grew louder. Some generals called the Emperor weak for not striking the humans when he had the chance. Others believed the humans were manipulating them, preparing to take control of the galaxy once again. In the deep corridors of the Imperial Council, secret meetings began. A few powerful officials gathered in silence far away from the Emperor's eyes. They called themselves the Guardians of Dominion. To them, humanity's return wasn't a miracle. It was a threat. One of the generals spoke in a low voice. "The Emperor's fear will destroy us. He believes these creatures are gods. I say they are just another species with tricks," another replied. "We can't win against them in open war." "Maybe not now," the first general said. "But we can learn from them. We can take their technology. If we capture one of their ships, we can understand how it works and use it against them." Their plan was simple but dangerous. They would send a secret mission to recover any remains of human technology, especially from the ruins of old Earth. If they could find what powered that great ship, they believed the Empire could control it. Meanwhile, in the palace, the Emperor was tired. The weight of command had never felt so heavy. He often walked alone to the observatory tower at night, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, he knew the humans were watching back. Sometimes he wondered if they were waiting for him to make a mistake. The only person he truly trusted was the old commander who had met the humans face to face. They often spoke in private. "They didn't come to conquer," the commander said quietly. "They came to warn us. But I fear we haven't learned their lesson." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Our people have known power for too long. They can't imagine a life without control." Just as they spoke, news arrived that shocked them both. A military outpost near the outer edge of the galaxy had gone silent. When a scout ship was sent to investigate, they found the entire station empty. No bodies, no damage, just silence. The surveillance logs showed something strange. A shadow, large and slow, passing over the outpost before all systems went dark. The recordings ended there. The Emperor feared the worst. He called for a meeting with the High Council. But when he entered the Grand Hall, half of the seats were empty. Some of his top officers had vanished. No word, no trace. It was the beginning of the divide. The Empire was no longer one. It was splitting from the inside. A few days later, the secret group of generals launched their plan. They sent an unmarked ship to the ruined Earth, carrying a team of engineers and soldiers. The planet was silent and dead, covered in dust and forgotten memories. But beneath its surface, their scanners found something. A large metallic structure buried deep underground. They dug through the layers of rock until they reached it. The structure was ancient but still alive, glowing faintly with blue light. The soldiers could feel the ground vibrating under their boots. It was as if the planet itself was breathing. One of the engineers whispered, "What is this?" The lead general replied, "It's power, the kind we've never seen." They sent a message to the council. "We found it." But what they didn't know was that the humans were already watching. From the edge of the system, a dark ship floated silently, observing everything. Its sensors tracked every movement, every sound. When the Empire's team broke into the structure, they triggered something they didn't understand. A defense mechanism left by the humans long ago. A pulse of energy spread through the ground, and for a brief moment, the sky above Earth lit up with white light. Every machine in orbit shut down instantly. The soldiers' helmets filled with static. The air grew heavy, and an eerie sound filled the tunnels. Not a voice. Not a roar, but something between both, like the planet itself was speaking. Then it stopped. The Empire's ship managed to escape, but half of its crew was gone, their bodies turned to ash. The survivors returned with a single piece of glowing metal, a fragment of the buried structure. They didn't understand it, but they brought it back to the secret lab. The scientists studied it day and night. The fragment pulsed like a heartbeat, alive and aware. When they connected it to their machines, strange symbols appeared on the screens. Human writing, but none of them could read it. One night, as they worked, the lab's lights flickered. The fragment glowed brighter, and a voice echoed through the room. It was calm, distant, and human. "You were warned," the scientist froze. Every monitor shut off. The air felt colder. They realized the humans had known they would try to steal it, and they had left a warning inside. When the Emperor found out what the generals had done, he was furious. He demanded to see the artifact, but before he could, the entire lab exploded. The shockwave could be seen from the palace windows. The energy released was enough to destroy an entire city block. When the flames cleared, nothing was left, no debris, no remains, just a crater of glass. The Emperor called an emergency broadcast across the Empire. His voice echoed through every planet, every ship, every colony. "We have angered forces we do not understand," he said. "If we do not stop this greed, we will share the same fate as those before us." But it was too late. The secret generals had already gone into hiding, taking their loyal soldiers and ships with them. They blamed the Emperor for weakness and called for rebellion. The Empire was now at war with itself. As chaos spread, a strange light appeared at the edge of the galaxy once again, the same light that came from the human ships. But this time, there were more than one. Thousands of points of light shimmered across the dark, moving slowly, forming a line like a wall of stars. Every Imperial radar in the galaxy detected it. The humans had returned, not one ship but a fleet. Panic filled the Empire. Some worlds tried to surrender before any battle even began. Others armed themselves to fight. The Emperor stood before his people one last time and said, "Do not raise your weapons unless they strike first. They came to teach, not to conquer, but if we force them, they will finish what we started." The human fleet didn't fire a single shot. They just stopped at the border and sent a single transmission across all channels. "The time for warning is over. The choice is yours." The Emperor felt his heart sink. He knew exactly what they meant. Inside the command room, he looked out at the galaxy map glowing before him. His advisor whispered, "If they attack, we won't survive." The Emperor replied softly, "If they wanted to destroy us, they already would have." Far away, the human ships hovered in silence, waiting. They were not there to fight, not yet. They were there to see what the Empire would become. But deep inside the Empire's broken ranks, the rogue generals were preparing their own plan. They didn't care about peace or warnings. They had one goal, to prove their power. In hidden shipyards, they built weapons from stolen human fragments, combining forbidden technology with their own. As their ships powered up, the stars outside flickered, a sign the humans could already sense what was coming. And in that moment, the galaxy held its breath. Two civilizations stood on the edge of history, one blinded by pride, the other bound by memory. The question was no longer who would win. The question was who would learn. The Emperor looked up at the stars for the last time that night and whispered, "If this is the price of arrogance, may history finally remember it." And far beyond in the black sea of space, the human fleet's lights began to move again, slowly, purposefully, toward the center of the Empire. The galaxy was no longer silent. Whispers of fear had turned into screams of panic. After the humans' fleet appeared along the border, the once mighty Galactic Empire trembled like a wounded giant. Every colony, every station, every soldier waited for what would happen next. Some prayed the humans would show mercy. Others sharpened their weapons and prepared for war. Inside the imperial palace, the emperor stood alone in his grand hall, looking out over the horizon of lights and towers that stretched across the capital planet. He could feel the tension in the air, the same tension before a great storm. He had ruled for decades, but for the first time he no longer felt like a ruler. He felt like a man standing before a tidal wave. The council room was filled with voices arguing over one another. "They're bluffing," shouted one official. "They won't dare attack. They're trying to scare us into surrender." Another replied, "We've already lost our courage. If we don't act now, we'll be slaves before sunrise." The emperor raised his hand. The room fell silent. His voice was calm but tired. "If they wanted war, we would already be gone. The humans gave us a choice, and we still have time to choose wisely." But before anyone could respond, an alarm rang through the building. The red lights flashed. A messenger burst into the hall, pale and shaking. "Your Majesty, the rogue fleet has launched their weapons." Everyone froze. The emperor's heart sank. "What? The generals? They've attacked first." Far away in a hidden region of space, the rebel generals had gathered their ships. Hundreds of them, painted black and armed with stolen fragments of human energy. Their weapons glowed with unstable blue light. They had spent months building them in secret, powered by the very technology they didn't understand. The lead general stood on his bridge, his eyes fixed on the human fleet displayed on the screen. "Fire everything," he ordered coldly. The space around them lit up with thousands of energy blasts. The firepower was unlike anything the Empire had used before. The explosions painted the void with violent colors. For a moment, the generals believed they had won. The human fleet didn't move, then the lights disappeared. The space returned to silence. The stars shimmered again. Every Imperial radar showed the same thing. Not a single human ship was destroyed. The general's smile faded. He stepped closer to the screen, confused. "Impossible." And then, slowly, one by one, the human ships powered up their engines. They didn't fire back. They simply moved forward. The rogue fleet tried to retreat, but their systems began to fail. Their weapons shut down, their engines froze. One ship after another drifted helplessly in the dark. Then, without a sound, beams of pure white light surrounded them. The ships began to disappear, not explode, not burn, just vanish, erased from existence like drawings wiped off a page. From the Emperor's palace, the transmission of the battle was watched in silence. The council members sat frozen, unable to speak. Within minutes, the rogue fleet was gone. Not a single piece of wreckage remained. The Emperor whispered, "They didn't destroy them. They erased them." Outside the palace, people across the Empire stared at the night sky. In every world, the same thing was seen, the lights of the human fleet spreading like a storm. And yet they didn't attack. They simply advanced until their ships filled the horizon of every Imperial system. The Emperor ordered a full communication link with the human fleet. No one knew if they would answer, but he had to try. His voice echoed through the transmission. "This is the Emperor of the Galactic Empire. Please, we surrender. No more fighting. No more death." For a long moment, there was no response. Then a voice came through, calm, deep, and almost human. "We did not come for war. You were given chances to learn, to listen, to change. You built your empire on fear. You stole what was not yours, but you can still choose peace." The Emperor took a breath. "Then tell us what you want." The voice replied, "Lay down your weapons. Free the worlds you conquered. Return what you took. If you do this, we will leave you in peace." The council erupted again in argument, but the Emperor silenced them. "We've spilled enough blood. It's time we earn peace, and not with power, but with humility." He gave the order. Across the galaxy, Imperial soldiers began standing down. Entire fleets powered off their engines. Worlds that had been ruled by force for generations suddenly felt a new kind of silence, the silence of freedom. But not everyone accepted this peace. A few surviving officers of the rogue generals hid in the shadows. They refused to surrender. They planned one final desperate move and to strike the humans directly, to prove their strength even if it meant their own destruction. They gathered their last warship, massive and burning with unstable energy, and aimed it toward the human fleet. Their goal was to collide and detonate it, creating a chain reaction that could destroy everything nearby. When the Emperor learned of it, He immediately ordered his guards to stop them. "If that ship explodes, millions will die," he said. But the rogue ship was already in motion, speeding faster than light toward the human line. Inside the bridge, the last surviving general grinned with madness. "If I fall, I'll take the gods with me." The humans didn't move. Their ships remained still, glowing like silent watchers. But moments before impact, something incredible happened. The rogue ship froze in place. Every engine, every weapon, every circuit stopped working. The crew couldn't move. They were suspended in light. Time itself seemed to stop. The ship turned slowly and drifted away from the human fleet, as if guided by an invisible hand. It landed gently on a nearby moon, undamaged. The crew found themselves alive but unable to remember what had happened. It was as if the humans had spared them deliberately, showing mercy instead of wrath. Back on the capital, the Emperor fell to his knees in silence. "They saved even those who tried to destroy them," he whispered. That night, for the first time in centuries, the Empire's skies were filled with peace. No battle sounds, no war alarms, only the quiet hum of the stars. Then, as quietly as they came, the human fleet began to move away. Their ships glowed brighter, forming a long trail across the galaxy. One by one, they jumped into hyperspace, vanishing from view. The Emperor watched until the last light disappeared. He turned to his advisor and said, "They didn't conquer us. They reminded us who we used to be." From that day onward, the Empire began to change. Factories that once built weapons were turned into schools and research centers. Worlds that once feared the Emperor now worked together in peace. For the first time, people spoke freely about what had happened, how the humans came not as enemies but as mirrors. Years passed. The Emperor grew old, but he never forgot that voice from the transmission, calm, patient, full of understanding. Sometimes late at night, he would walk to the observatory and look at the stars. He often wondered if the humans were still watching. Maybe they were waiting to see if the Empire would keep its promise, or if history would repeat itself. But one night, something unexpected happened. The Emperor's sensors detected a faint signal coming from deep space. It was weak, barely there, but recognizable. The same frequency the humans used before. He smiled softly. "They're checking on us," he said to himself. Then he whispered into the quiet room, "We are trying. We haven't forgotten." The message was simple, but it carried across the stars. And though there was no reply, the Emperor felt peace in his heart. For generations to come, people told the story of that day, when the Empire trembled before the humans, and when mercy, not might, decided the future of the galaxy. It became more than history. It became a lesson that no matter how powerful a civilization becomes, it must never forget its humanity. The humans had left behind no ships, no monuments, no technology. Only silence, and the wisdom that true power lies not in fear, but in restraint. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space in the cold beauty of the universe, the humans continued their quiet watch, guardians of peace, waiting for the day the galaxy truly understood them. Years had passed since the day the human fleet vanished from the edge of the galaxy. Time had changed many things, but the memory of that encounter still lived deeply in the hearts of everyone in the Galactic Empire. The story of the humans, how they appeared, how they spared the Empire, and how they disappeared, had turned from a terrifying memory into a legend whispered from one generation to the next. Children learned about it in schools. Teachers spoke of it not as a tale of war, but as a lesson about humility and second chances. The Emperor, now much older and weaker, lived in peace. The once powerful ruler who had controlled countless worlds now preferred the quiet company of books and the soft glow of starlight from his balcony. He had rebuilt his empire not through fear but through understanding. Where there had once been military outposts, now stood hospitals and research stations. Where there had been prisons, there were now centers for art and knowledge. The galaxy was learning to breathe again. But deep inside, the Emperor still carried one question that never left his mind. Who were the humans really? They had power beyond imagination, yet they chose not to rule. They had the strength to destroy the Empire, yet they saved even those who tried to harm them. What kind of beings could do that? Were they gods? Were they once like the Empire, powerful but wiser from their mistakes? Every night he found himself standing before the observatory window, looking at the same patch of sky where the human fleet had disappeared. He often whispered into the quiet, hoping someone out there might hear. "We remember you," he would say softly, "and we are trying to be better." One night, something unusual happened. A soft light appeared in the sky, not bright but steady. It wasn't a star. It pulsed gently as if alive. The observatory sensors began to react. The Emperor called his closest advisors. They watched in silence as the light grew stronger, forming a line of symbols across the sky, patterns that looked strangely familiar. One of the advisors spoke carefully. "It's a message." The Emperor's old eyes widened. "From them?" The message repeated in rhythm. 3 short pulses, 2 long, and then 1 long pause. The translation team worked for hours until finally one word appeared on the screen: "Remember." The Emperor leaned back, his heart heavy and warm at the same time. The humans hadn't forgotten. They were still out there, watching, waiting, reminding. But what did they want the Empire to remember? The message didn't stop there. A second word followed: learn. That single word struck deep. The Emperor understood it at once. The humans didn't come to rule or to punish. They came to teach. Everything that had happened, their silence, their mercy, their disappearance, had been part of a lesson. The Emperor decided to send a reply, even if he didn't know whether it would reach them. He spoke softly but clearly into the transmitter, his voice steady despite his age. "We have learned. We are still learning. And we thank you." After that night, the strange light faded and the stars returned to their normal calm. But the Empire had changed again. The people began to feel renewed hope. The message spread through every world: remember, learn. It became a new kind of faith not built on worship but on wisdom. Over time, a new generation of explorers rose. They didn't seek conquest or power. They wanted to find the humans, not to fight them but to understand them. The Emperor supported this mission, believing that knowledge was the only true path forward. He gave his blessing to a small group of scientists, pilots, and historians to venture beyond the edge of known space. Their journey began quietly, without fanfare. Their ship was small but built with care, not a warship but a vessel of peace. It carried the emblem of the new empire, 2 hands joined under a star. As they left the capital world, people across the galaxy watched with silent pride. The explorers traveled for years, crossing star systems untouched for millennia. They faced storms of radiation, broken wormholes, and strange silent regions where even time seemed to move differently. Many times they doubted themselves, wondering if the humans were ever real or if their story had just become a comforting myth. But then, one day their sensors picked up something extraordinary, a signal faint but familiar. It was the same frequency the Emperor had once heard decades ago. Their ship slowed down and they followed the signal into a region filled with soft white light. There were no stars here, no planets, only endless calm. As they moved deeper, the light began to take shape. Thousands of giant structures floating in perfect harmony. They were not ships in the traditional sense. They looked alive, breathing slowly like creatures of energy and metal. The crew stared in awe. A voice echoed through their communication systems. It was the same calm voice the Emperor had heard long ago. "You have come far," it said. The captain replied respectfully, "We came to learn." The voice continued, "And what have you learned?" The captain looked around at her crew, then said, "That power without compassion is nothing. That fear builds nothing lasting. And that understanding is the only path forward." The voice was silent for a moment, then spoke again. "You have understood well. You have grown." One of the glowing ships moved closer to theirs. It didn't attack. Instead, beams of light scanned their vessel gently as if studying their history, their hopes, their hearts. Then the voice said, "The Empire has remembered. You have kept your promise. Now it is time for you to see." A bright light filled the cabin. When it faded, the crew found themselves standing in a place that wasn't space or ground. It felt like being inside a dream. Before them stood figures that looked human but not entirely. Their eyes shone like stars and their presence was calm and warm. One of them stepped forward and spoke. "We were once like you. We built empires, we fought wars, and we thought we were the masters of everything. But we learned that real strength is not in what we can destroy but in what we can protect." The crew listened silently. The being continued. "When we saw your empire rise, We saw ourselves in you. That is why we came, not to punish but to remind you of what we once forgot. The captain asked softly. Why did you disappear? The being smiled gently. Because lessons are only learned when the teacher steps away. The words echoed deeply in everyone's mind. They realized that the humans, or whatever they had become, had been guiding the galaxy from the shadows, ensuring civilizations didn't repeat the same mistakes. The light around them began to fade again, and the voice said one final thing before they were returned to their ship. You are ready to write your own story now. Protect your world and remember, peace is not the end. It is the beginning. When the explorers returned home, they found the galaxy waiting for their story. The Emperor, now very old and near his final days, listened quietly as the captain told him everything. Tears filled his eyes, not from sadness but from peace. He said softly, Then we were never truly alone. The captain nodded. No, we were being watched, cared for, and guided. The Emperor smiled faintly. Then our journey was worth it. Not long after, the Emperor passed away peacefully under the same stars he had once feared. His final words to his people were simple. Never forget the light that showed us mercy. In the centuries that followed, the Empire evolved beyond recognition. It became a union of free worlds, where cooperation replaced control, and learning replaced conquest. The memory of the humans and the mysterious guardians of peace became a guiding force for generations. Every year, on the day the humans had first appeared, the people of the galaxy gathered under their skies, turned off their machines, and looked up in silence. They didn't celebrate with noise or fireworks, only quiet gratitude. And somewhere far away, beyond the edges of known space, a faint glow always appeared in the distance, gentle, steady, and familiar. The same light that had once frightened an empire now brought it comfort. It reminded everyone that no matter how vast the universe became, or how powerful civilizations grew, there would always be something greater, something wiser, watching from the stars, hoping they would never forget what it truly meant to be human.